And welcome to Cruise Control, your on-air automotive magazine. Hello, everyone. It is Fred Staab and Les Jackson. Les, how you doing?
Excellent, Fred. Excellent. As you are, because both of us are rather anxious to get going with telling people what is happening in the auto world today.
Yep.
Yeah, it's funny. People ask us frequently, well, is there anything new? And it's always, I mean, every day there's something new.
Yeah. And then sometimes there's some old things that we like.
Yeah.
And BMW says its V8s are here to stay forever, basically, in the U.S.
Yeah.
And at least in the U.S. And they say people want V8s no matter what, even if they make less horsepower than a inline six with a turbocharger. They just want that V8 sound, and they're going to get it from BMW. So we'll tell you about that, right?
Yeah, that's interesting because it used to be that BMW, the German companies, used to have the attitude of, well, you will drive what we think you should drive.
Well, Mercedes has that, and that's kind of cost them a little bit.
Yeah, but hey, good for them. Anyway, if you plan on buying a Mustang, especially a Mustang GTD, you better be prepared to keep it for a while.
Yes. Remember how they had the special board of inquiry for the
Right.
Ford GT? Well, they are having that for the GTD Mustang. So they're going to ask you how you use it, how often you're going to drive it, and you're not going to be able to sell it very
Yeah,
easily.
You'll sign a contract that penalizes you heavily if you sell it.
Yeah.
So you're sort of renting it.
You're sort of, yeah.
Anyway, we're going to talk about the pros and cons of that.
Yeah.
And Dodge, I think this is interesting, Fred, because
Yep.
you just were talking about, not just now, but a little while ago, about modest priced performance cars. And
Yeah.
the Dodge new CEO is saying, this is the right time for a sub $30,000 performance car.
Yeah. We'll talk about, you and I will talk about what that might be.
That's right. And we agree with him. And you can bet Dodge will come up with something pretty exciting.
Yes. Yes. Well, we were talking about Toyota bringing back the Celica, probably not necessarily under $30,000, but a 2-liter 400 horsepower engine with all-wheel drive.
Wow.
Maybe we'll talk a little bit about what Dodge might do. And then Volvo has an interesting reveal of its EX30. Once again, a somewhat affordable electric car, over 400 horsepower. And they revealed it in a unique way with this sort of cabin in the woods, I guess you would call it a very high-end cabin.
Yeah.
Well, highly anticipated, this car. You know that?
Highly anticipated. I'm seeing a lot of these things on the road. So they're doing something right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And speaking of doing something right, or at least quickly, the ZR1 Corvette breaks yet more records. And the Blazer SS sets the pace at Daytona, which, okay, that's fine, but the Corvette is just burning the tracks up.
Yeah. Also, we're going to talk a little bit about Daytona. They're going to have to, I think they're moving up the start time of that because they've got some rain on the way coming in, which I kind of like the idea of thinking ahead and trying to avoid weather.
Yeah.
Having been at many races that get rained out, or you're standing in the stands and it's like, whoops. So,
yeah.
And if you caught the last hour of Cruise Control, we talked about talking tech. It was a tire-related talking tech. Well, this hour, we're going to continue
another
that.
one.
Yeah. What do eggshells and tires have to do with one another? Eggshells could be very expensive, by the way, because you have to buy
Yeah, well, that's
eggs
right.
to get them.
These
Right.
days, eggs are getting, I mean, relative. They're getting very expensive.
Oh,
And
you
sad, very
what,
sad about
what
the
would you get a dozen for
commercial.
previously? A couple of dollars, and then
It
now
used to
they're
be, well, we used to buy
$8.
organic eggs and they might be $4,
Okay.
but now it's 10 or 12 just for eggs,
Yeah.
eggs.
Eggs. And you are going to start, or we'll call it a reboot of a feature we've done on Cruise Control.
That is right.
We're going to do it every week. Forgotten cars, and so we're going to ask you what to tell us about a forgotten car. Don't tell us which one it is, though.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. So we'll
You
do
can
it a
give us a
little bit.
hint.
Okay. Well, what I'll do here is I'll give you. I'll try not to even hint what the company is, but it's a car that came out only 2 years here. It was very costly, um, and it was designed to be kind of the equivalent of a big high end sedan.
Mm-hmm.
It was powered by a 400 horsepower engine, but I'm not going to tell you how many
Oh,
cylinders
all right. Get
'cause
people
that might.
thinking about this.
That's right. I drove one to on a trip to Newport, Rhode Island for a week,
Just good
and
background. That doesn't help you. with
no,
what-
but I will tell you, it only got 10 miles to the gallon.
Okay. All right.
And it
That's a
was
good.
wonderfully luxurious. I mean, just incredibly luxurious.
All right.
But people didn't want it.
Okay. There's your hints.
There's your hint.
We'll talk about that later in the show.
That's right.
And tell you about that in Cruise Control. We're going to do that every week here on Cruise Control. And
Yeah, it'd be a lot of fun.
I constantly am reminded by some cars that we've completely forgotten. I told you about one. Don't mention it because we'll do it in a future.
No.
Forgotten cars, but that's an interesting one too. But let's get started, Les, with our story about BMW and V8s. Now, you and I covered a Mercedes. I think it was it a C63 AMG?
C63, right.
And we asked our audience, hey, this has a turbo 4-cylinder, powerful, but would you want that? And most of our audience said, no, I don't want that. It needs to have a V8. If we're going to spend that kind of money, it needs to have a V8. And BMW has kind of picked up on this vibe because they say V8s are here to stay, at least in the US. And we've been seeing many manufacturers, of course, talk about, well, I'm going to delay going all electric, or
Right.
I'm going to keep the internal combustion engine around in a certain form. But BMW is saying, and they actually cite that C63 AMG. They said we're not gonna do that. We're gonna keep them around in things like the M5 and others because our customers want the V8. They want the V8 sound. They don't care if it makes less horsepower than an inline turbo 6 or turbo 4. They just want the V8, the big naturally aspirated V8 or turbocharged V8, whatever it is. And so that's what they're going to stick with. What do you think about that?
Well, I like this. It's kind of funny when you think about it because the V8s now are in the exotic class that V12s used to be in.
Yes.
And V12s were impractical. I mean,
yeah,
they put out a lot of power,
but a lot of them were small displacement, right?
they were very small displacement. Ferrari was famous for 12-cylinder, 3-liter engines.
You could have half of that V6.
But it is interesting. Now BMW is even willing to put V8s in, even though And I love the phrase that somebody wrote saying that they share with the heavier V8 engine, they share a curb weight with only Nimitz class aircraft carriers. And it's not quite that bad, but it's
No,
bad.
no. I mean, it's an aluminum V8. I mean,
Yeah.
it's something about the sound,
Well,
right?
yeah. You can't, well, you can, I guess, electronically, you could create it, but otherwise, mechanically, you can't recreate the sound of a V8. I've
I
built a lot of V8 engines,
Well,
and you can't duplicate it.
a V4 wouldn't sound like it. It would sound like a
No,
four.
no,
I
no,
don't. I've
no,
never
no.
heard of V4, so I don't know.
No, a V4 because of the arrangements, the sequence of cylinders. They sound horrible
Well,
to me. Some motorcycles had those.
so it basically has to do with the number of cylinders, the resonance, the firing order, all that
Right,
stuff. Yeah,
right.
yeah. Oh, I'll even go further. I like when we would go to Corvettes at Carlisle and they do the parade. I like the older sound of the first and second generation Chevy V8s because it's a deeper sound than, let's say, an LS.
Right. They were longer stroke,
Yeah,
so they had a deeper sound because the exhaust pulses weren't coming out at as high a speed.
yeah.
This gets really technical.
But there's a
But
reason for why people like it. It hits the frequencies they like.
yeah, yeah, there are just certain sounds that are pleasant to
Yes,
people.
yes, yes. Yeah, I agree. Well, like I say, maybe that tells you someone will make a very small displacement V8 just to get the sound. A
And
2-liter V8. How about that?
absolutely. And by the way, you can now buy an actual metal build a V8 kit for about $500, and it's a little tiny little V8, weighs maybe 3 or 4 pounds, and actually works, actually runs.
Can I run my clock radio with that?
You can. I run my coffee grinder.
That would
Yeah,
be fun.
it would be fun. Uh, Only single people could ever do this.
Right. Yeah.
No one's wife is going to say, "Oh, that's a great idea," but
Yes,
a
I
gas engine.
I often see that when someone says,
Yeah,
"Oh, I keep my car in my living room." I'd say, "You live alone,
yeah.
don't you?"
You're single, aren't you?
Yes. Yes,
And
and
and they are.
yes, and I frankly I agree it's probably best not to do certain things like that anyway, but
That's true.
well, let's move on to our next story, and it has to do with a very exotic Mustang GTD. Of course, we've talked about this. Ford is going all in Le Mans, and they think the Mustang can take on the Porsche, and the GTD Mustang is the pinnacle of development of a street Mustang. So let's say you want to buy one. They're very, very limited. And it's not like you're going to walk into your dealer and say, okay, I'll buy one. Yeah, give me this nice metallic red one that looks good. You almost you almost have to pitch yourself for this, right? Uh,
Yeah.
they're going to make a run of 300 to 700 cars per year. Already over 7,500 people have raised their hand raisers, and said, yes, I would like one. And you're going to have to basically go before a board of people at Ford. You have to sign a document that says you will not sell the car for at least 2 years. And they're going to look for how you're going to use the vehicle. Basically, you cannot just put it away and say, well, I'll put it away for 2 years and then I'll sell it. Right.
You can't do that. I just think that's an insult to the engineers. I really do.
Yeah, it should be. used. It should be brought out. And um, but I guess that you think about the league. I always thought like if you buy something, what do they care? Like if you want to sell it, that's up to you. But they really want to control these things, and I guess you sign a contract, you've got to honor that contract. John Sienna did this with the Ford GT. He sold it. He broke the 2-year requirement, flipping the car for a large profit. Uh, I'm not quite sure what happened to them.
I think you have to pay
Him,
Ford some kind of a very large penalty.
but they have to design the penalty that it's not worth it. Like if yes, I flip this for
Uh,
$1 million, and then they say, well, the penalty's $50,000. Okay, here's your cut.
right. No, I suspect, well, I don't know. We'll have to, maybe we can find out what this contract is, but whatever it is, it's not it's painful.
Yeah. So it's kind of unique, but we've seen this before. We don't see it with things like the ZR1 or whatever. Most vehicles are not limited, so you can just go in and buy them, and you know, you got the money, you got yourself a car, buckaroo, right?
Well, that's right. But when you got something that's a built-in legend,
Mm-hmm.
um, and you're only going to build a few, then you're buying it, and you're a caretaker
Right.
for some period of time, whatever that is. You're probably allowed to sell it after X number of years.
Yeah, after 2 years. After 2 years.
Okay,
But
well, that's
well,
it's pretty
but
fair.
look at it. People will take something to Barrett Jackson and sell it. There were ZR1s. People couldn't get ZR1s. People couldn't get Z06s. I'll go back that far. C8 Z06s.
Yeah,
Someone bought one and they took it to Barrett Jackson and made money even after them buying it, them spending the money to put it in Barrett Jackson and paying the percentage, and they made money.
that's speculating.
And people were happy because they couldn't buy the Z06. So now they had one. Yeah, they paid more money, but maybe even less money for it with all said and done than going to a dealer and having it marked up, with a huge margin. So I don't know. But yeah, somebody made some money on it. Seems like a lot of work, though.
Well, it does seem like a lot of work and yeah, and expense.
Yeah. Uh,
But
cool that a Mustang like this is going to be available. I love the see-through window for where the back seat was. It's to look at the suspension. That's
yeah,
kind of a fun thing that somebody came up with. But
this
uh,
is this is a heck of a Mustang, by the
go,
way.
goes
It's
without saying, this is going to be a future collectible. But very cool, and very exciting. And I tell you what, maybe it is worth
it's
it. I wouldn't sell if I bought it. I wouldn't sell it after 2 years.
it's this is kind of the Bugatti Veyron of Mustangs.
Yeah, and the goal is, as I say, to get this level of performance, and they want to take on Le Mans, and they want the Mustang to be like a competitor, a worldwide
Yeah.
competitor.
Well, it's this will do it.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting stuff.
And
So,
now, I will say one thing. I think, first of all, I think it's really a good looking Mustang. Sometimes they can just look too
like
wanky,
overdone. Yeah.
but the screws showing in the wing in the back, I think they could have done a smoother job
Mm-hmm.
than that.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of besides having all the exotic stuff, it's got a um, wide body kit on it that is cool. I'm sure somebody will sell that wide body kit for normal Mustangs just for
Oh
the
yeah.
look. But yeah, cool stuff. I love the wheels. I love the magnesium
Yeah,
wheels.
wags are neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, all in all, this thing is quite. It's just really impressive.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool stuff. Who would have thought back in 1964 and a half that we'd be looking at a Mustang that where you would have to sign a document that you
Yeah,
couldn't
exactly.
sell it. Yeah. Well, what does the Dodge's CEO have up his sleeve when it comes to performance? We all know that once again, this is the big trend this year, more affordable, easier to get into. Um, and in the case of Dodge, they want to make a sub $30,000 sports car. Back in the day, things like the Plymouth Roadrunner and others, Dodge Dart, 340 Dart, Duster, they used to be in the business of affordable
Oh yeah,
performance, right?
yeah.
It was a big
They
thing.
were they were well in those days they didn't much top $5,000,
Yeah. And you
which would
could,
be about 60 or $70,000 today.
so you theoretically could be a guy working an after school job, um,
Yep.
and buy a 340 Duster or something like that, right?
Oh, I had friends that bought cars like this. Everything from GT 350 Mustangs to um, well, never a Dodge Daytona with the big wing and the
No,
nose.
no, that was even exotic back then. That would
That's
be the
right. But
GTD
lots
of
of
its time.
lots of big engines in small cars.
Yeah. So what do you think they could do to build a sub $30,000 sports car? We know we need a different we actually need a car to put
A
it
car.
in. That's the biggest problem.
Well, and the question is, do you go about building something small, or do you just get a Challenger or a Charger body and build it kind of cheap?
Well, they're talking about taking on the MX-5. You know, that starts at about 30,515.
Okay,
Uh
that's a
so
two-seater.
are they going to go two-seater drivetrain? I thought about maybe the Tenali drivetrain, like a
Mhm.
hybrid, a hybrid turbocharged four-cylinder. Probably that would be what you're looking at for sub $30,000, or a really tiny small car, and they'll just throw that Hemi in it. Goes through.
Well,
I don't know.
well, see now if it's a sports car, then it's you could kind of make like a mini Viper,
Right. I like that idea.
and I think that would be pretty easy to do.
But the problem is they can't go, they'd like to make it a parts bin type of thing. They don't have anything small car to put it in, you
No, they
know?
don't. Well, other than the alpha version of the Miata
I don't know. I don't know
or the
what they could.
Fiat version. Maybe they could just take that platform and throw a little V8 in it.
I don't know. I don't know. But we'd like your opinion on it. Let us know what you think they could do to build a sub $30,000 sports car. I think it has to be a clean sheet type of deal. Um, you look
Yeah.
back to, maybe think back to things like the Solstice. Remember the
Yep.
Solstice? That could be
Oh
a
yeah.
forgotten car too, but uh, that was a rear drive, two-seat roadster with a four-cylinder in it. I don't even think it was a turbocharged four-cylinder.
No, it was just a pretty large displacement four-cylinder, about 108.
Yeah, and you think back to that, and you think back, well, what would that mean? And I think they could do it. I think they could do something like that. I'm not sure if they would be able to come up with the parts and pieces to do that, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see if that is a possibility in the future for them. I think it would be great to have an affordable car like that again. I mean, the only thing I can think of that they have right now that's like that is a BRZ, and I think that is something that they could model it after. We'd have to see. We'd have to see though. Maybe a BRZ or the 86. That's the type thing that they would do. BRZ or 86. They
Yeah,
could model it after that, right?
I think so. I'd love to work on a program like that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting stuff. Interesting stuff. Hey, you're listening to Cruise Control, your on air automotive magazine. Fred Staab and Les Jackson. We are glad you are along for the ride. Um, let's talk a little bit about the EX30. And that is from Volvo. And it got kind of an interesting reveal, um, and a very snowy reveal for sure. But pretty big deal. EX30 is going to be a very affordable electric vehicle from Volvo. It is going to um, have about a 250-mile range, over 400 horsepower in that little package. And they were kind of looking at the cross country version of this, the EX30 cross country, which even Volvo has gotten into the act with a kind of a more off road active lifestyle version of the EX30, haven't they?
Well, you're right. And now you can't sell anything unless it has a roof rack on it with some sort of sports equipment,
Yeah. A li-
skis and kayak and all that
yeah, a little
stuff.
bit raised up. Uh,
Yeah,
They did a reveal of this in the town of Lulea to facilitate the ultimate outdoor experience that defines cross country. Um, and it's a good looking version with a little raised up, a little bit bigger tire, apparently some more cladding, and a roof
a
rack.
lot of cladding.
Yeah, it looks kind of cool, I think, that way. But most probably won't be sold that way, I would imagine, right?
That's right. They did it at a cabin that you can rent in that little near that little town. A lot of windows, a lot of large windows in that cabin. It looks like it would be really cold in there if you're sitting near the windows.
Yes, unless
But
they're like
yeah,
quadruple layer windows. Very snowy, but a cool car, and EX30, very basic car. Kind of takes the page from the Teslas with the big tablet
a
screen.
little bit. Yeah, it's rather basic inside. Not a lot of frills,
Hmm. So,
but it's got everything you need.
yeah, it's got everything you need. It certainly does. So, there you have it. Um, so, what do you think? EX30, I think it's going to be a big hit.
I think so too. Volvo really doesn't have much in the lower end of prices,
Hmm.
and people do really like Volvos.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Good stuff. Good stuff. What what do you think? Would you buy something like that? That EX30?
if I were buying an SUV, yeah, I probably would, just because it's simple. You know, it's not um, stripped out. It's simple. It's easy to use. It's for people that maybe haven't owned a new vehicle in 10 or 12 years and aren't familiar with all the gadgetry.
Hmm.
I think they'd be comfortable.
Yeah. Well, Volvo is going to launch 5 new models, and they in 2025 they have 2 new models based on the SPA 3 platform, which will be interesting to see. The EX90, EX60. So that is a lot of work for Volvo. We'll be looking
It
forward
is.
to reporting on them. Okay, Les. So now it's time to talk a little bit about this forgotten car. Give us a few more clues, and then we'll do the reveal. How's that?
Okay. Okay. Well, the price of the car was $94,000, and this is in 2004.
Okay, that's huge. It's huge today.
It's huge. So you would think that it was coming from, you know, Audi, Mercedes, Rolls-Royce,
Okay,
but it wasn't.
all right.
It was you you had to kind of look twice
I
to
think it's
say
time to reveal it. The forgotten car of this week's Cruise Control is
the Volkswagen Phaeton.
the
That
luxurious high-end.
incredibly luxurious with a huge, and by the way, I measured, you got a picture of it there. I measured that VW logo, chrome logo on the front. It was 9 inches.
Wow. So they were proud it
And
was a Volkswagen.
and when I was driving it up and we were going through the very, very wealthy section in Rhode Island, Newport,
Mm-hmm.
and we stopped at a cafe. And a couple people came up and said, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, it's a Volkswagen Phaeton." "Well, how much does it cost?" "It's really nice." "Well, it's $94,000." And everyone said, "I'm not going to pay $94,000 for something with a Volkswagen logo on it."
Therein
It
lie
was
the
it was
problem.
reverse. Um, yeah,
Reverse badge
reverse
engineering.
ostentation. People just they love the car, but they frankly said, "No, not with the Volkswagen logo on it."
Wow. So really, it was a big miscalculation. Great vehicle, but big miscalculation.
And it had the same V16 or W16 engine that went into the Bugatti Veyron,
Wow.
except this was naturally aspirated.
What was the horsepower on it? Do you remember?
400 and like 405. It was plenty fast.
I bet. And
Uh,
very complex
oh,
W16.
very
Two
complex
V8's,
engine.
basically, right?
It's 2 V8s, but they're very, very um, shallow V's shaped
And they're Siamese together.
on the timing. And you know, in a Veyron, of course, it's got 4 turbochargers and 7 radiators. but but this was and the one I drove looked just like this. Actually, that nice dark wood and white interior accents.
Wow.
It's a delight to drive, but as I say, it got 10 miles to the gallon.
Well, I wonder what these things go for today and if there wasn't that many made, I'm sure,
Oh,
right?
they didn't sell many. In Europe, they sold the Phaeton either with a V6 or a diesel.
Okay.
I suspect they sold more because the Europeans aren't that status
Yeah.
conscious as
Yeah.
Americans.
Yeah. And I'm
Um,
sure it was a perfectly good car with a V6 in it, too.
and they sold it for more years, but here it was only 2 years. And I'd love to. You know what? I'm going to just search to see if any are for sale.
Yeah. There you go. There you go. Well, while less searches for that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about what's been going on with the ZR1. The Corvette ZR1 has been busy breaking track records at 5 tracks, Les. They broke records at Watkins Glen Long Course, Road America, Road Atlanta, Virginia International Raceway Full Course, and Virginia International Raceway Grand Course. And the driver at Watkins Glen was Bill Wise, who was a lead performance engineer, chassis controls. At Road America, it was Brian Wallace, lead vehicle dynamics engineer. Road Atlanta, Chris Barber, lead development engineer. And then Aaron Link drove it as the global vehicle performance manager at both of the Virginia International courses. So sounds like they've been out having some fun, doesn't it?
Well, yes, they have, and they didn't invite us. Yeah, that's pretty cool. But we know that the ZR1 is just an absolute world class dominant performer.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And
with a warranty.
Yeah, with a warranty. So look for that to break more records, I'm sure, as they come along, because that's something like they like to talk about a lot. Let's talk a little bit about Mitsubishi. We're always looking for a deal for you. The new 2025 Mitsubishi Outlander will be priced from $29,645, and it's going to get extensive updates to the interior with new materials, revised controls, updated cup holders. Always important to get updated cup holders.
Very important. Very important.
Yeah, and exterior updates include 18 and 20-inch wheel designs, new designs there, updated front grille and bumper, revised taillights, retuned steering. I like that. Updated suspension tuning, highlighting new drivability, a new Yamaha audio system, and a 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty and 2-year limited maintenance included. Starting at $29,645. I don't know what they go up to, but certainly this could be a value for some people, right?
It is a value for basically an SUV. Carries a lot of people. It's a people hauler, and all kinds of goodies. And by the way, it has a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty, which
is good. I mean, now the other problem you have to think about, Mitsubishi also is in trouble because they were tied in with Nissan, and they are struggling as well. So
that's right.
But certainly on the surface, this sounds like a good deal, doesn't it?
Yeah, but the Outlander is a respected model. It's been around a long time. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would worry about finding a dealer.
Yeah. Yeah. Over to Daytona. Let's talk a little bit about what will be pacing the Daytona 500 this weekend. And that will be a Blazer SS. Blazer SS pace car, all electric, is their performance model of the Blazer. So that will be doing the pacing work. And they're going to start the race a little earlier, trying to avoid some rain, which is interesting that they would do that, which is good, but very proactive, because most races I've been at, if it rains, they rains, it's like, that's it. Maybe they would tell you like, hey, thunderstorms coming in, get out of the bleachers. That's what I'm calling.
That's right. And it's, driving a race car in the rain is very, very tough.
Yeah.
And it's not fun. Not fun for the driver. Not fun for the viewers.
Well, they can't do it in drag racing, and they can't do it in NASCAR, right?
No,
because of the tires. There's no.
So this is as you say, they're being very responsible and
trying to
starting
get it in.
early.
Yeah, trying to get a full race in. So
And this Blazer is pretty quick.
yes, it is. Yeah, it's a pretty cool looking car, I have to say. Now they do have a prototype NASCAR car, race car. Basically, this is the race car they're talking about that could eventually be used. Because let's face it, they're going to have to switch over to SUVs at some point because there'll be no cars left to model.
Yeah.
Uh, So this is what they're looking at, the Blazer as a potential prototype for NASCAR. I wonder if they would do that high wing. I don't know, but it looks like it does incredible burnouts.
Yeah. Well, my gosh, look at the power.
This is the EVR NASCAR prototype, and they showed this before the running of Daytona 500. Delivers over 1,300 horsepower from three 6-phase electric motors that instantly rev up to 15,000 RPM. And it's powered by a 78 kilowatt hour liquid cooled battery. So
It's pretty stout.
I don't think, though, that the NASCAR audience is going to go for electric power. I just don't think so.
I agree with you. I think they want a whole lot of noise.
Mm-hmm. They are going to have to switch over to an SUV, though. There's nothing left.
Yeah, there are no sedans.
You can't keep running the Camaro after it's been canceled, you know? On the other hand, the Dodge Charger people, they're fine. They could run that new body style. That would look good as a NASCAR car. And the Mustang continues on. Certainly. So you can run that as a NASCAR car, continue that. But what will GM run? And it looks like they're going to think about doing this Blazer. But I don't know how that works. And how can you have teams running cars, sort of cars, sort of stock cars, Mustang and Charger, and then have someone else running an SUV type thing? Wouldn't that be a problem as far as keeping cars equal?
I think you don't have as efficient aerodynamically as the car bodies.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I don't think it's that much problem.
Okay. Interesting. I don't know rules wise, but we'll have to see.
Either.
And of course, Toyota does well. They have their Camry. That's not going to be a problem for them to continue running that. So the big problem is GM. What do? They can't run the Corvette. They can't run a Corvette ZR1 body, but that's their only car left.
That's it. Yeah.
Not even the Malibu.
So,
we covered that. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Well, they could run a Malibu fleet car.
That's right. A rental car. Yeah. I don't know. It's a big problem. It's a big problem for them, but I guess it is the Blazer, and we'll have to see. They're floating that trial balloon. Hey, do you want to talk a little tech? We've been talking tech about tires, and
we're still going to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. Why don't you take it? Let's talk eggshells, rolling on eggshells, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah, as Stellantis says, if you're walking on eggshells, you get a lot of stress. But driving on them it is not a problem.
Okay.
There's a patent that takes eggshells out of the compost bin, puts them into the tire compound.
Mm-hmm.
So specifically, what they're looking for is the calcium oxide from eggshells,
right?
To replace carbon black and silica.
Okay.
As a tire filler, and that's pretty nice in itself. And what you get, well, first of all, it's a natural material. You're not using carbon black, which, by the way, is
it's soot.
Very dirty to manufacture.
It's basically soot, they say.
It's most of the carbon black is incinerated bones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Um, yeah. Anyway, it's pretty disgusting. But if they can use this material, it's just it's just much cleaner. It's much more environmentally satisfying, and you get all these. I mean, how many eggshells are in landfills? It's got to be an awful lot.
Yeah, I don't know enough about eggshells. Do they dissolve? I guess they do.
Well, they might over time,
Yeah,
sure.
it's calcium, basically, right?
It's calcium,
Yeah.
calcium oxide.
Yeah. Um,
So yeah, it's well, anyway, natural rubber is actually white.
really?
It's always been turned black. If you look at very, very old cars from the first decade of the 20th century, the tires were white
Wow.
because it was natural rubber.
Okay.
Um, so these tires would also be white-ish,
Or they could be
and
dyed somehow,
well,
probably.
you could dye them, hopefully without carbon black.
No, because then but
Um,
having black tires is advantageous, isn't it? Or do they just do it
well,
for looks? I mean, they've always been
sure.
black as far as I know.
Well, yes, but
I,
as one who still loves white wall tires, sorry, it's just a nice looking part of a tire.
okay.
Um, I realize that nobody else cares about white walls, but I just think they're very handsome.
I don't know. You can't get white walls from the factory anymore, can you? There's no
No,
car that's sold
no.
with white walls. I mean, you can get them from Coker Tire or
Yeah, you can.
others.
I don't believe you can go to a tire store and get a white wall. I may be wrong,
Yeah.
but anyway, this is just a really, I think, really nice idea, and then it it makes a nice tire, and all these eggshells, which all of us are terrified about biting into an eggshell.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, I just think using natural chemicals is always better than using manufactured chemicals.
Right. Right. Yeah, I agree. I agree. If you can use things like, hey, they use water bottles to make plastics, plastic
Right.
parts inside cars. They used old denim jeans and work clothes to use as insulation that's repurposed. I think that's all good. That's all good to do.
It is all good.
Why not?
And it would be fun to try these out. We have no idea what the life, how the life of the tire would be affected.
Yeah. No, we don't. We don't. But interesting tech there. Interesting
Yeah,
tech.
it's cool stuff.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the Scout brand. Of course, this is a offshoot of Volkswagen, and they have a couple of great vehicles, an SUV and a pickup truck. They're going to have extended range vehicles. Of course, they're just at the taking of order stage. Part of the problem is, though, they are part of Volkswagen, and their business model involves direct sales.
Yeah.
And here come the dealers.
Yep.
They are facing resistance in California, where California New Car Dealers Association, the CNCDA, has sent a cease and desist letter warning that the brand's sales strategy violates a 2023 amendment to the state vehicle code. The amendment prevents automakers from competing with their own franchise dealerships, a rule aimed at maintaining traditional dealer networks. And so others have gotten around this, but the problem is Scout is part of VW. In Florida,
That's a problem. That's a problem.
A group of Volkswagen and Audi dealers has filed a lawsuit against Scout, arguing that the company is violating the state's dealer franchise laws by accepting deposits for its vehicles. Under Florida law, even deposits are considered sales, and Scout has already secured over 50,000 of them. So,
Okay. I have a solution for this.
okay.
Don't sell them in Florida.
Well, California and Florida, other states are
that's
going to
okay.
follow suit, right?
But what if you just sell them, in border located dealerships or
And put them on a truck and
pickup points? I mean, there's nothing illegal. You can't. If I buy one here and I go move to California, California can't penalize me for buying one here and
no, but
and bringing it
Connecticut
in.
would tax you. Connecticut.
Oh, well, sure. They tax us here for personal property tax. So,
Yeah. But
garage tax.
you call it what you like. Sure.
That's what it is. It's called a garage tax.
But, what will happen here? People really want direct sales.
Yes.
Will they do something like Hyundai, I think, has done it well, where they sell on Amazon. Yeah, they sell through a dealer, but the good thing is people don't want to go to a dealer. They don't want any contact with them, or very, very limited contact with them.
That's right.
And you can buy it on Amazon, you put it in your cart, and that's it. Then I guess you might have to talk with them about paperwork or whatever, but the price is agreed on. There's no, I don't know if they try to upsell you with the dealer installed junk or what, but,
no.
but, is there a workaround, or do they have to spin Scout off of Volkswagen? But it's still always going to be part of Volkswagen because they're going to build these things in a U.S. based plant. It is Volkswagen's money. So how does this all work out, do you think?
Yeah. I think it's rather small of the dealers who otherwise do not sell Scouts that they're suing because they happen to be Volkswagen dealers. If they sold something equivalent to the Scout, I can see maybe some justification, but they don't sell it. It's they don't sell Jeeps either.
Yeah.
So I just think that this is greedy and sleazy.
Well, do you think the dealers think, especially Volkswagen, Audi dealers think, hey, this is a Volkswagen, we should be selling it. We should be doing it. It's like another brand of Volkswagen.
I'll bet some of the dealers are Scout dealers. They picked up the franchise.
Yeah,
there is no franchise.
There is no franchise. We're early days.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think they should leave it alone. The future is going to be buying direct.
Yeah. Well, the other thing I always wondered, and obviously there are some great dealers out there where it's probably perfectly pleasant to buy a car from them, but the ones that make it unpleasant with the upcharges and the bad theater, when you buy a car and all that, don't they realize that? I guess they feel, hey, we have this mandate and we're going to do it. But you could make your people feel a little bit better if you change the way you do business a little bit.
Yes. Well, that's right. There are still some junkyard dog type dealers.
Yeah. Switching out vehicles, having vehicles that they advertise it and you go in, oh, it doesn't cost that. And, all the smoke and mirrors. I mean, like if you just, and some are like this, so they're very fair. That's the price. Okay, great. Sounds good. Let's write it up. But the mumbo jumbo, if they cut that out, maybe people would be less likely to say.
And it's going to get worse for a while because the administration just got rid of the consumer financial protection
Yeah, it was actually the
agency.
court did, right? It was the bill was just found to be, I'm sure there was very lobbying going on. Can you lobby a
Oh,
court? I
the
guess you can.
car dealerships have been lobbying against this agency for years.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. Hey, well, we hope you've enjoyed this edition of Cruise Control. I'm Fred Staab.
I'm Les Jackson.
We are going to see you down the road.
Bye.